Decision making, pardon me, as a time factor. The problem is that this month, if we start looking at what happened, and in the latest aviation or African pilot, the last article I wrote was about an aircraft that after takeoff at RV7, and it happened at Rand, where they got in, well, first of all, sort of like a partial engine failure, and then an engine failure, and then they turned back. Now, we're going to go through the discussion because that's obviously a pilot's nightmare. It's everybody's nightmare, okay? So we've got to talk about it, and so that we see if we can't be a little bit more prepared. All right, so before we start, there's one or two definitions that we've got to go to. And I'm talking about adversity. Now, adversity is simply just a difficult or unpleasant situation. So when I talk about adversity, to be exposed to adversity and stuff like that, it's the stuff that's not nice. It's like the poof stuff. Okay. The interesting one here is the average reaction time. You know, here we talk about humans, 0.25. Just look at, this is to me very interesting because it's 0.25 seconds in visual stimuli. Now it becomes less, 0.17 in audio and 0.15 in touch. Okay, so it's not just for ladies. Okay, men, you're sensitive to touch as well. Let's say, but what the hell is the problem? Because, I mean, that's quite fast. If we can react that fast, then why have we got problems to sort stuff out? Well, you know, these tests are sort of under sterile conditions where we're waiting for a light to do, and when the light goes, we pick it there, and when we feel this, and when we hear this, and stuff like that. So remember, these were tested under ideal conditions, and that's not where you and I fly. It's noisy. We're after takeoff. We're busy cleaning up the aircraft. We're busy with power settings. We're probably busy with flap retraction. The passenger plane probably talks. The tower's talking to us. So that's one hell of a, it's a complicated environment. Let me just put this cell phone here on quiet. Yeah, it's the way that we communicate, and sorry about that. All right. Time, how long does it take then? You know that most multi-engine helicopters, I know, for instance, when they do out-of-ground effect single-engine tests, then they give you 3 seconds. Then if you're on, when they cut one engine, you can actually cut 1001, 1002, 1003, and then the RPM will be at the optimum, but also, you know, the optimum is also sort of like the minimum optimum, and then you really got to react. So, but when there's a single engine, when it's gone, it's gone. And when it gives the indications that it's going, that's about the only time or warning that you will have beforehand. But nonetheless, time, okay, just listen to what I'm saying about time here, because, you know, everybody is time, and we were born with time, and we've got time, and, you know, we haven't got time. Time in terms of when adversity strikes, you've only have the time that you were dealt with, nothing more. So if you cannot fix up the problem in that time, well, I think then there's a little bit of a problem. No more and no less. Time cannot be produced or reduced. And you'll say to me, surely we can, well, look, if we start fumbling around, then it's like there's not enough time. If we practice something and we get into a rhythm, then we can actually respond very quickly, because we can now start using our subliminal memory, or, you know, your subconscious mind. That comes into play, and it's, call it muscle memory or what you want, but that we can start using. All right, so time management, I say here, oh yeah, just it's only effective or efficiently utilized. And time management is an acquired art, not a natural byproduct of existence. So there's no Superman, there's no super lady. Sorry, ladies. So don't get carried away with this, that you're just the man, or you're just the girl, or whatever. It's not how things work. We are pretty much all built the same way. The blueprint is not far out. And if we look at average reactions and we look at the capability of handling stuff, then we will always come back to see that time management is a taught phenomenon. It's nothing else. We get taught how to do things. Well, I remember years back at 87 Helicopter Flying School, sitting in the Alouette 3, 800 feet downwind, and they would physically cut the engine. So it's a controlled, real emergency, if you can put it that way. You can't get the engine back online. So once the engine was cut at 800 feet, you had 20 seconds until touchdown. But it is not the touchdown, it is how you arrive at the touchdown. And if you muck it up, then there's no way that you'll be able to restart and get a second chance. And there I learned that the more frequent you do things and you stick to the recipe and you do what is right, then it gives you really the best chance. So the first time, there's just about no, then 20 seconds just goes like this. But if you practice that same, then that 20 seconds actually becomes a time where Arthur Walker, you know him, I would always say that Arthur was so cool with this stuff, he could light up a cigarette, and you all that know me, he actually could light up a cigarette while we are sitting in a flippant auto rotation with no engine, and you've got to do stuff like that. And he was just pretty good with stuff like that. He was. Unfortunately, he succumbed to cancer. All right. Stimulus, there's just two of them that I'm talking about. Remember, there's stimulus, physiological and psychological, so whichever it is, the ability of an organ to respond to external stimuli is called sensitivity. How sensitive are you? How alert are you? We might be, but if we understand the environment of stimuli, then I think we've got a better chance. Psychology, I don't want to go through the whole thing, but just to show that, there are differences in why do I need the stimulus? Because I need to get from the stimulus to performance. And when we look at the stimulus performance graph, it actually suggests if there's no stimulus, then there's no performance. Right, ladies? Gentlemen? Whatever. Okay. All right. Let me not digress. Then this question of anxiety. What happens at the other side of the spectrum? Now, the doctors amongst you and the psychologists and psychiatrists can talk about it, but here I've got anxiety versus fear. And it's often accompanied by muscular tension, relentless fatigue problems, and concentration. That's anxiety. As I understand that anxiety is probably more thing that's got a longer build-up. But fear is what we experience in the shorter term. But it says here, the fear response arises from the perception of danger. It's not to say that it's danger, it's the perception to confrontation with or escape from, avoiding the threat, which in extreme cases of fear, and here they say it's horror and terror, can lead to freeze response or paralysis. Sure, and that's the last thing that we can afford is if something happens that we go into such a fear where we go in freezing mode. We can't, I'm not scared to go and fly. It's not a fear factor for me. I don't lie at night and sweat because I'm anxious that I've got to go and fly tomorrow. In fact, quite the opposite. I enjoy that. When I do all the engine cuts with the people, whether it's in a fixed wing or a helicopter or the advanced stalling and stuff like that, I don't even know if my heart rate really goes up. That I do concentrate 110,000% at that moment in time. Yes, that is so, because it needs that sort of input. Do I get scared when things? Of course. I also get that bang, and the adrenaline starts pumping and all that kind of stuff. And then, when you get to my age, then you come down, it's like, all right, it was just part of the deal. It's never really part of the deal. Ask Wally or Conrad or, the aerobatic guys out there. There are times that you're just about, sort of I won't say wet your pants, because men don't do that, but we can crap in our pants. All right, probably not 100% true, but a situation, let's just look at the situation that happened here. After takeoff, the engine backfired, and then less power, and then subsequent engine failure. I remember I get my information from the accident investigation that was done by CAA. So I don't put any extra facts in here. These are just the facts. Whether I totally agree with the facts, if I look at the evidence from the photographical side and, is not necessarily so. However, the pilot elected to land back on the aircraft, back on the field, as he was in a climbing turn, and he said that he could make the runway. Okay. So here we've got the situation where the pilot took off, engine cut, he was in a right-hand turn, the airfield was lying on his right, and he decided to go back for a landing. I don't think it would take, in this case, you see there was a Generation 3 ignition system that apparently malfunctioned. I believe that is what happened. And, the pilot must then go over, as I understand it, to the normal system, and you actually got to put this Gen 3 off. And you can do that, but he neglected to do that. And under the circumstances, well, I think I might have forgotten to put it off as well, because, I mean, when stuff starts happening, to have a long sort of think, I wonder what was that. While you've closed the one engine, you can sit nicely on the other engine, and we can still climb to flight level 250, and then we can sort of look at this, what we're going to do. Doesn't work like that in the single. When it goes, and obviously we need to do our thing. The undercarriage, the aircraft suffered damage during the impact. Undercarriage broke, propellers, and I'll actually show you what it looks like. Now, what I find interesting here is that there's the shortest shear, a little bit longer, a little bit longer. Now you're going to ask me, what does that mean? Well, quite frankly, I'll have to sit and discuss it with, the engineer types and stuff like that. I've got an idea that, it probably number 1, 2, and 3 hitting the ground, but it also says, if I look at how shortly this was cut out, it means that there was a considerable nose-down attitude. I don't think that the aircraft arrived and there was a flow to anything. I think it impacted the ground with a considerable nose-down attitude. So if we, okay, what else can we see? The undercarriage is broken off. In other words, that's sort of like showing, there was I'm just deriving it from there, a low nose, very high speed, and the impact like that. And then obviously it also start breaking the back of the aircraft. Here you can see the back of the aircraft is sort of broken. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. And you can also see the braking services on the tailplane that I put in. I just covered up the ZU. It doesn't matter who it was. Remember, any person can end up in the situation. And I think when somebody walks away from it, the person whose aircraft this is, I don't know, and I actually don't want to know, because it's not about him. It's what we can learn from the other person's problems. Okay, I just want to also show flaps up. There was no flaps down and stuff like that. So it was a beautiful area to land. So what I would derive from this is, if the aircraft were close to the ground with some good speed, then there was a huge possibility that the aircraft could have been, held off as in a normal kind of landing. So rough suggestion, and not something that I can now guarantee that's 100% right, but I think there was a lack of speed in this accident, and that the rate of descent couldn't have been arrested. In other words, there wasn't enough speed. Now, whether this is true or not, aerodynamically, it could 100% be true. And I just want to latch on there so that we can learn the importance of speed. All right, let's first go to this fatigue and panic and all that kind of stuff. Here I've got the stimulus. Yeah, the stimulus, and here I've got performance. So if you look at, you might not have it on there, but okay, on this side it says performance. Okay, so the more the stimulus, the increase of the performance. But there's a peak to it, and then stuff starts going literally pear-shaped, and there is, you run out of performance until the stimuli is so high that technically the performance become a non-entity. But if you look at here, you'll see there's a very nice area because, you know, it's not like a pinpoint. At that point you can do this or that or the rest. But okay, let's go to the next one. The question always would be now, how do we go from the, look, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to probably, if you read the article in the African Pilot, then I could just give a little bit of an explanation there that the first thing is that, you know, there is this bodily reactions that we were talking about. So when we say you're going to poof yourself, it's probably true, and your performance is going to go down immediately. Now, if we do training in this area, if we do enough training in the adverse areas, then it will increase our resistance to a performance loss in that area. So that's why people sit in the simulators all the time. That's why the professional guys must be retested every 6 months. That's why we advise people to come for proper preparation, if it's helicopter, to go and do your rotations and your emergencies and stuff like that. It's not stuff that you practice every day, but it's stuff that we really need to be able to brush up. It doesn't really go about the test. I know you can fly, but now I must release you for the next year or the next 2 years. So the guys, let's get this right. The guys that do flying for a living, and they do it every day, they have to retest it every 6 months, because there's 6 months a check and then your test at the end of the year. Your guys that, if you're your private pilot license, he tests and then for 2 years there's nothing. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't give us enough time to practice in this area. Because if we practice enough in this area, then we've got the capability or the ability to actually widen this area of optimal performance. No, it can't be perfect. The idea is not for it to be perfect. Maar jy moet nie jou gat afskrik nie. You must just get fright enough so that the readiness is right, so that you can move and that you can operate and that you become super sharp. But if you have got muscle memory, if you've practiced it enough and you know your story, it gives you a better chance. I had engine cut in a Harvard on downwind during night flying. I was in the absolute ideal position to land, and I nearly overshot the runway of my eagerness to get to the damn thing. And I was struggling to get the flaps down because I was fumbling with that. I already had 1,000 hours just on Harvard. And when it goes like that, you're off your A game. It's just the way it is. When we fly around and I test people and we pull it here and we pull it there and occasionally we open up and we do this and we do that, don't be fooled by that facade. That is because I know it's going to happen. And I determine when it's going to happen. The poor guy that's on the receiving end doesn't know. But when the playing field is entirely even, where neither you nor I are going to be warned that something is going to happen. Obviously, if there's a sputter and a splatter, then you've got a little bit of a warning and you should pay attention to. But if it's like that, we're in the same boat. But because I've done it many times, I've got greater muscle memory, and I have been exposed to adversity a little bit more. Therefore, my capability of handling, let's say, bad kind of environments is easier. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit faster now. I can see that I'm typically Marais running out of, what you call it, out of time here. If the poof hits the fan, calm down. Retain your composure and you rely on training. Okay, basically you can only rely on training if you've had the training. How do you get to training? You have to get yourself exposed to the training. No, you don't have to come to me, but you're going to have to go to somebody who will know how to handle these things. Yeah, but I can do it on my own. I know you can do it on your own, but that is where this, you always feel good about your doing. And I've always, never as a student, ever come back from a sortie and I said, now they've just had the worst sortie flying with me and landing like hukus and, or, well, you know, and then they go on their solo and they come back and say, whoa, they're so impressed with themselves. The landings were smooth. You know, man, I was watching the landing from outside there. It was all controlled crashes. Okay, maybe not all of them. But that's the point that I'm trying to make here. How to prepare for adversity? Let me just, a couple of those. Obtain knowledge. Okay, you've heard that a lot, the knowledge and the skills. We won't get past that. Recurrent training must become part of the self-preservation strategy. I'm preaching this every month and saying, get your training, get your exposure. Do you know how many people follow the advice? Well, you can answer that for yourself. Make decisions of possible adversity prior to the possibility of the event taking place. So we do, before we take off, we do checks to see that if you've taken off and there's something wrong, then we already know, we've got a plan. We've already made a decision. At what height are we going to turn back? If we haven't got enough out, where are we going to do? Make a plan. I'm going to land there, I'm going to land there. But remember, that is particularly dependent on the area that you are in, and I will demonstrate that just now. The next one, do procedures aimed at very specific airfields. Now let me just go. If we go to Tempe, for instance, and we're going to take off in this direction here, there very, very serious obstacles on the overshoot. And remember, there's some power lines running about this side as well. So when I stand here and I want to take off on 01, I'm going to say, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And if there's no more, then I'm going to turn out right. I'm going to go there, or I'm going to try and go there. If I'm high enough, and that will be far away from this, you might even come back. But there's lots of other areas that I can consider. The point is, don't just take off and do a little rhyme. And after takeoff, if there's no more runway, I'm going to land 30 degrees to the left or 30 degrees to the right. Really, give me a break. Tell me where on this runway. So let's take another one. Here we've got Grand Central. The overshoot area now is a total nightmare. This side, slightly better. But you don't determine which runway you're going to use. I just want to make sure that, you know, we give ourselves a better chance. Rand Airport, this gentleman took off from here. He was in a right-hand turn, and then obviously he turned back. Now, exactly where he touched down and stuff, I do not know. But if you go back to the Rand, and you'll see that the overshoot areas here, right around, that's Nach. You've got to have a plan. You've got to warn yourself. So, if you do your procedures before takeoff, it just brings all that information from the back of your mind to your to your short-term memory, or shorter-term memory. So if I say, after takeoff, I'm going to do this and this and this and this, and if I get a thing like this, I'm going to do, then I'm going to do that. And that depends on this height, when I can turn around, or where I must go. Then at least I've got a plan. I've got a point of departure, and I give myself a better chance. Just a couple of tips here. If the seat is, okay, listen properly now. If speed is the substance of flight, then height is the storeroom of that substance. You've only got three energies: mechanical, kinetic, which is speed, and potential, which is height. If you lose your engine, mechanical, she's gone. The only thing that you've got to put into speed is height. And if you run out of height, you cannot convert it into speed. And you've run out of height, then we meet up at Mother Earth. And how we arrive at Mother Earth, that is very important. We don't want to stall before the time or get out. We actually want to get there. And then in this case, if the gentleman arrived with a higher speed, and he probably had flaps and a low speed damage, this aircraft probably would have had, it could have had 0 damage. Does that mean that I now think that he didn't do well? No, not at all. Of course, he did brilliantly. It's terrible to have that. Ask Jack Onestal what it's like to lose an engine, and how do you walk away from stuff like that. So, you know, there's no pointing fingers. I just want to say to you that if you have the height and you can use the height right, then you can obviously have the benefit of arriving in a little bit more safer format. A flap will reduce your stalling speed. That is straightforward, but it will also lessen the glide. Okay, so we must know that. Always aim for an overshoot. Then use undercarriage and flap. Really? Yes, always. You know, if you take an aircraft and you've got an engine cut, if you start gliding without flaps, then the nose will not stick to a certain point in the ground. It will creep over, and that point will move with you. If you've got full flaps and you've got a white arc, then that point on the ground, that sort of, let's call it a theoretical point of impact, because, I mean, obviously we're going to round out, that point stands dead still. Yes, you can go and try that. But don't get so mesmerized about the angles that you're doing and so that you forget to round out and, you know, take power and all that kind of jazz. All right. Too much energy can be managed with the increase of drag, but too little energy sucks. It sucks at 9.8 meters per second square, which is gravity. Okay, so gravity sucks. It's true. It's fact. It's science. Full flap and top of the white arc, as I said, will keep you there to plan your move and advance, give the edge of most developing situations. If you plan, you've got the surprise is less. Surprise is less, you're more on your feet, figuratively speaking, to think. All right. Just 3 things that I want to say here. The following is our fact. Stalling is a fact. It happens. To be in a situation where stalling may occur, that's a reality. To avoid a stall is an educated option. It is not luck. It is not luck. Forget the thing luck. What did Gary Player say? The more I practice, the luckier I get. It's the same for you. It's not, I'm not giving you any new information. I'm just pleading you to understand what we're talking about. Decision making is a result of applied knowledge and practiced skills, not by chance. There's nothing by chance. If we practice it and we've been in that situation, you've got a damn fine chance. I cannot believe it. People go into situations that they have never been in, and then sometimes they don't come out of it. And if they do come out of it, they think they're great. You're not great, man. You're lucky. You're stupid and lucky. All right. There I go again. Okay. During a stressful situation, your performance... Oh, wait. This thing doesn't want to make a good line here now. During the stressful situation, your performance is directly in relation to your currency. In other words, when last did you fly? How it can... Is there still a little bit of memory left in terms of the adversity that is coming your way? I'm going to be a little bit faster now. When last did you read the aircraft manual? When last did you read your aircraft manual? When last did you read your aircraft's manual? Don't answer me. Answer yourself and go and ask, do I know everything? Am I still 100% sharp with everything? No. We're busy with other stuff. I've got to reread the machines as well when you hop from one cockpit to another cockpit. It's not just your problem, it's all of ours. When last were you properly checked out? Were you properly checked out, or were you too scared to be properly checked out? I don't know. You know, that is the one thing that we must probably have a look at. Anyway. All right, so if I now click there, then you'll see that was the end of this one. So let me just wrap it before we go to our guest speaker. And then after that, he's about 5 or 6 minutes. And then I'll let you go, and then you can get Vorsies and discuss things. But time is only, well, you only got the time that you were dealt with. How prepared are you to operate within that time constraint? When is the worst case condition? It's obviously, you know, after takeoff. You've got the least time to make a decision. I just want to urge you, from a safety perspective, is try and make your decisions before. That will help you that if anything goes, that you can make your decision quicker. And then just remember, speed, speed, speed. Okay, speed, speed, and speed. But the source of speed to satisfy the lift formula can only come from mechanical or height. But if the mechanical is gone, it's only the height. No height, no speed. No sky, well, then you're forced to land. How we arrive on the ground is critical. Okay.